We're gonna do smaller.
Sure.
It's hard, price on the tickets, you'll get billed from Jeff.
So nobody needs any money today or tomorrow for that. Right, we just get billed from Jeff.
Yeah, you'll get a bill from Jeff. The other thing, Tim, your seats are outside, but feel free to come on up to the suite.
Outside the parking lot?
There's a big number. Yeah.
Okay.
We're in the whole section. Beverages and we got some food there. The other thing is Jeff is gonna play a clock game, so bring some extra singles if you want to partake.
Some extra or like 50?
Like a bunch.
He's talking about dollar bills, like single individuals returning.
So that's it.
Who need? I have some tickets if you want to park in my parking lot for the office. Would anybody like to do that? Who that is? Just raise your hand. I'll give you a ticket. I'll give the address. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, I got it.
I'm just kidding.
Since I don't bring it's where I work.
You spoke from Scott, your boss.
I got a lot of bosses, While you're mentioning Scott, can you talk about recycling of that, Scott?
Recycling committee is going to get together again, then we're going to open up the warehouse for recycling purposes. We're planning an open house next week, Tuesday night. So it's designed for people to come and see what we do there. There'll be some people working, but it's more of a showing type of thing versus having you come and work for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So come in, check things out. We'll have a little light refreshments, but nothing big at all.
What time are cocktails?
5:30 to 7. You bring the cocktails, we'll have them. But the, apologize for the email that went out. We had a bad link, the Google Docs that we've been using since the Grand Valley students created that link for in 2014. It's worked every time and all of a sudden now it stopped working. So anyway, it's up on YouTube now, so anybody can see what they created for us. And so
I sent that link out.
yeah, we're gonna send back out to the YouTube link will work, the Google Docs probably will not. Stop by, come and see us. All the committee chairs will be there showing what's going on in the IWAS Center because we're preparing to open up. So we won't work the first Tuesday of April. Spring break will be closed, but starting April 11th through May, we'll be open every Tuesday night for people to come and work on measuring, washing the glasses, inputting the computer, because we're trying to get ready for our trips in the fall and next spring. So any questions, look me up. Happy to help you.
And we have a mission coming up in Jamaica in October, and then another one in February to Suriname, South America. Blind dinner date. Jim Schuyler is the chair, and he can use a few more people on the committee. So if anybody is interested in helping with that, again, Jim, a newer member, looking for a little support. We've got a few people on there, but if you've got some time, the meetings are all by Zoom, so you don't have to be there in person, which makes it great. Some announcements. Sean, I know this is going to cost you happy bucks. Sean Heidstone was chosen as one of the 27 notable best Michigan lawyers by the Grand Rapids Business Journal for 2023. So, yeah,
Funny thing is a notable lawyer.
Well, actually,
and on the staff note, Ron Allard, who is one of our members, married to Tim, is critically ill. She's been suffering. She's had some very serious medical conditions that she wanted to keep quiet, and it is not getting any better. So if you would keep her in your prayers. She went with us on a Jamaican mission trip, and was very excited with recycling and all that. Did a lot of work there, but we'll keep you we'll keep you updated on what happens with her. Tell to Mr. Jamie.
Well, we'll go start collecting bucks right away. Been trying for me. Come on. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, 8. The most notable young lawyer has $1. Yes, this is public shaming. Any other happy bucks?
No, it's a guilt buck. I got no pen.
Very good. There's also a green number too. Good.
That's my green.
That's your green? Okay.
Here's my happy bucks. This is I wasn't here 2 weeks ago for medical reasons, but that's my happy bucks. Really not my money. That's the money I got from golf. Job account.
That's a different type of public shaming. Yes.
Having several bucks, the whole family went to Jacksonville, Wyoming, and all three, including the 3-year-old.
Wow. Yeah.
Happy Buck, Cheryl and I did 2 Lions trips. We didn't go to Ohio and we lived to tell about it in Kentucky, not Kentucky,
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
They're close.
You know what? I'm so tired of seeing red. Ohio, Nebraska, everybody wears red all the time. I'm just glad to be back in normal colors.
Keep trying to give me.
I'm trying to give you a happy buck for my Spartans who are gonna win on Thursday night.
Yes.
Had a little trip to Arizona, and that's probably $10 I won betting on Scott.
Yes, it's always a good bet there. And anybody that. Who's hand? Green, green. Anybody else on that? Okay, we got it.
Just one thing.
Camera go. Pens and colors and all that. We gotta do the raffle now, or did you have a couple other things?
It's just loose.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Oh,
loose.
we did the rest of these
That was-
cards from, I got that, too. Okay. And this is the table we go to.
Yeah, now it's back in the list. It just was a bad connection.
Okay, be careful. Sharon.
I do, I'll tell you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, white one goes in. We'll mix that up. We'll have our guest speaker.
We just mixed it up for-
I did it wrong.
I better just hang on to it.
So I'll go over to our speaker.
You're good. I had it connected, but I don't know.
You're waving, I'm going, what's the matter?
Yeah, no, I had it connected, but I can.
It's a lot of light. Now, the first ticket, person wins $5. The second ticket, they get a chance at winning more than that, and they usually lose. So $5 is good. Take it. It's a green ticket. Last 4 numbers, 4107. 4107. Kyle. Yep. And we totally got that. And you dropping the. Get double. Oh, I didn't know he was ahead of that. So, did you put the white one in already? Okay, Kyle, you did all right.
I see where it is.
Last 4 numbers, 4081.
Thank you for your donation.
Let me check mine. And I'm not good at sleight of hand, so there's no way. No, did you win? I have no idea. Nobody else has got one. There we go. There we go.
He's not mine.
Yeah, you, brother. Okay. That's been a long way to go for nothing. Well, we don't know.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Wait.
He got it.
I didn't carry that enough. I had to read it out.
Great.
Doesn't pay very much anymore.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of it.
They won't even pay for the call.
Yeah, but, yeah, but-
Well, it gives me great pleasure in introducing our speaker today.
How about?
Jeff. Hi, Jeff. I'd like to introducing our speaker today. Brigitte Betzer is a franchise expert, and she's going to tell us about it. As a net franchise consultant, she assists individuals in the exploration of business ownership in franchising, both financially and as a career choice. She grew up in franchising, where her family operated a successful master franchising in the state of Michigan and Northern Indiana. And she's going to tell us about the good, the bad, and the ugly of franchising. Brigitte, thank you.
Thank you. Let's make sure I can advance these slides here. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Okay. Let's see. Okay, that was a great introduction. Thank you. It's usually how I start our program off, because that's kind of an ironic way of how I landed in the franchising profession here. Believe it or not, even though I grew up here in West Michigan and my parents were involved in franchising, I went off to Central Michigan University and got a biology degree because I wanted nothing to do with business ownership. So started out working with a non-medical home care company on the east side of the state, right out of college, doing marketing for them. And that was after a very short stint at what used to be the Michigan Community Blood Center here, where I worked in the lab processing the blood components that were donated for the hospitals. I'm not a lab person, I'm a people person. And so that's how I got into marketing, but I love the healthcare field. And so I tried to stay connected to that. But shortly after I joined that non-medical home care company, they launched franchising efforts. And so I raised my hand and I said, I know a little bit about franchising, kind of grew up in that world. And after 13 years with them, I had spent time helping them to create their franchising systems, but then helped to recruit, train, and support franchisees on an international level with them, and grew that franchise system from 0 franchises to close to 200. I worked with BrandNet as I was in that recruitment role with that non-medical franchise company to help me find highly matched franchisees for our system. And as I had a toddler at home at the time and a preteen, and my husband was moving up in his career, and we said something has got to give here because I was traveling all the time and just could not do that anymore. And so I joined BrandNet and launched BrandNet in West Michigan, and that's been, gosh, a little over 12 years ago now. I'm also a SCORE mentor. I joined SCORE a year ago or so, and I'm a SCORE mentor here locally as well. So has anybody heard of BrandNet before today? There goes the mouse. No? So it's funny because most folks don't know that there are franchise consultants out there. But BrandNet's been around for over 35 years. We have over 100 locally based BrandNet franchise consultants around the US and Canada. We have great partnerships with groups on a national and a local level, like SBDC and SCORE. I mentioned SCORE. Are you all familiar with SCORE and the SBDC here locally? Yep. Great organizations to help aspiring and existing entrepreneurs launch and grow their businesses. What I do every day is work with folks. Anybody in this room could be a franchisee, but I help them identify, would you be a good franchisee? Would you be a good business owner? And if so, and maybe you don't have that $1 million idea, what type of business should you own? So I take folks through a series of steps to educate them. I'm a big believer in education and using knowledge as power to drive success. And so we do a lot of education on business ownership and franchising every day. We provide folks choices after we make matches for them to investigate, and then guide them through the investigation process to make sure that they're covering all the right steps and making sure they're collecting all the right information before they make that investment. That could be a life-changing investment. And the best part is that my services are 100% free. I work a lot like an executive recruiter. And so the franchisors actually pay my fee if I find a match for them. But because franchising is regulated by the FTC, you know, the client pays no more for a franchise working with a consultant like myself than if they were to try to go online and do this themselves. So today I wanted to just give you a quick overview of what is franchising, bust some myths, talk a little bit about why franchising is rocketing, and why West Michigan would be a great spot for franchising. So franchising is a license to use names, trademarks, products, and business systems in exchange for an upfront franchise fee and ongoing royalty payments. What they're doing is they're offering you systems and processes. It's almost like having a consultant at your fingertips when you buy a franchise. You've got experts at that franchise headquarters that have done all of this before. They've launched this business, they've created these processes, these systems, marketing, sales, operations, and then you buy that process from them. They train you, support you, guide you, and it's up to you to then go back to your local territory market, because franchising is territorial based, implement those systems and processes to drive customers to your location. And that's one of the big misperceptions in my mind when people think about franchising is, I'm going to buy a franchise and I'm going to hang that brand name sign on my front door and business is going to come flooding in from that corporate company. And that's not the case. You have to, as the franchisee, go out and find your customers and use their processes to drive business to your location. There are advantages and disadvantages to franchising. It's really not for everybody. The advantages is that there is a licensed trademark, brand name, proven business system, training, support. Again, it's like a consultant at your fingertips. The lowest failure rate out of the different business ownerships out there with franchising, if you're comparing to apples to apples. A lower cost as well, believe it or not, because you can predict based on past experiences, unlike other business ownership options. A lot of financing options with franchising, even for startups that might be service-based, which seems unusual, right? And there's a disclosure process to help protect the consumer and a franchise family. But the disadvantages sometimes can be similar to the advantages. It is a structured operating system. So you have to have somebody that's not really what I would call a wild cowboy, right? Who wants to create all the processes and systems. They've got to be able to follow processes. I like to compare it to baking. Way back when I was looking to make a change out of the franchisor side of things, I thought maybe I open a cupcake bakery. My husband told me I was crazy, which he's probably right. But anyway, so I compare this to baking. If you're baking a cake, you have to follow the recipe in order to get your cake to rise. But maybe you can get creative sometimes with that recipe. Maybe you can add chocolate chips, but if you don't like chocolate chips, maybe you can add nuts. You can change the flavor of your frosting. So same thing with franchising. There's that core recipe, but with a lot of franchisors, you have the autonomy to put your own personality into it as well. You really are the owner of that concept. There are fewer industry options. Okay, so a lot of times, you know, you're not going to find a jewelry making type franchise. It's more of a hobby type based business. So not everything is franchisable or franchised. There are territory restrictions. So some folks look at that as maybe franchising might limit your growth opportunities. And that's possible, perhaps. But then again, there could be some upsides to that territory as well. You can only sell their products and services, can't really deviate from that. And then you do have to pay ongoing royalty payments. So for the revenue you generate, you're going to give a portion of that revenue back to the franchisor. And that's another misconception that I'll mention. A lot of folks think that if you're going to pay a royalty, that maybe you're not going to make money in that business. Well, then why are there so many people buying franchises and continuing in? And why has franchising been around for ages, right? Franchisors create and structure their systems financially to the point where even after you pay those royalties, they want you to make money. So, okay, so I wanted to play a little game here. It sounds like from what I've seen so far, you guys kind of like games, right? A little trivia. Okay, so we're going to test your knowledge about franchising. So myth or fact, true or false, okay? Franchising is only fast food and retail. What do you think? True or false?
Oh.
You're right. All right, so there's over 3,000 different type of franchise companies out there covering more than 90 industries with close to 1 million operating units. And let me just kind of show you what, I always get the question, what's hot or what's trending in franchising? And so if we were to go online and look at the industries that are franchised, here they are. These are the popular ones. And these are basically based on the types of searches that folks are doing online for franchises, and these are popular categories. Home services is probably one of the most popular. You see that at the top of your screen. Those are things like flooring, blinds, painting services, cleaning, business services, business to business. So sign companies would be something like that. Executive coaching, sales training would fall under that category. Senior and healthcare is huge. Food is up there, and that seems to be the most attractive, or what I'll call sexy type of franchise business out there because it's the most visible in your community. I usually don't recommend a lot of different type of food concepts because they're a difficult type of business to run and operate. And a lot of franchisors, this is an exception from the rule, but a lot of franchisors will look for their restaurant franchisees to have restaurant experience before they join the team. So, and you can see child-related services, pet care is huge as well. And if we were to look at, there's a governing body called the International Franchise Association. Every year, they publish information on growth and trends on different type of franchising industries. And so this is just very similar to what we saw as far as the search terms. These are what the industries that are seeing franchising growth as well. Okay, so true or false? Franchises succeed because of the quality of the product. What do you think?
Oh.
Yeah, that's false. Good job. When we think about franchising, you don't want to go out there and have a business that offers a bad quality product or service, right? But if I were to use the example of McDonald's, why is McDonald's so successful if their burgers aren't the highest quality beef? Maybe they say they are, but they're not, right? What makes them so successful? And it's not their French fries or their milkshakes, but think the Happy Meal, right? The Happy Meal, marketing, their marketing system. Every McDonald's you go into around the world has a very similar process to an experience that they offer you. And that's really what franchising is all about. And for those of you, anybody travel, I know you travel a lot. Do you have a certain hotel chain that you really like to stay at that you're used to or accustomed to because of, what the experience is going to be? Yeah, I mean, that's typically what we find,
Wherever they put us.
True or false? There are low-cost franchise opportunities. True. Yes, absolutely. Especially if you're, again, comparing apples to apples. But I do like to break it down because I like to say this is kind of like beauty is within the eye of the beholder, right? Cost of a franchise. But when you're looking at starting up a business, there are franchise opportunities with a total and estimated initial investments of $100,000 or less. And that's your franchise fee, your working capital for 3 to 6 months. That, let's just say you need to advertise and market the business, or maybe you need insurance or different licenses. There's a section in the franchise disclosure document that's titled Item 7, and it's an outline of your total estimated initial investment. And so it's really easy for us to take what other franchisees' experiences were with their expenses launching a business, put that in the FED so we can see what we might spend as a franchisee when we launch that same business. And so that data, this data was taken out of those franchise disclosure documents a few years ago, but you can see that there's a large percentage of franchises at $100,000 or less, another large percentage, 25% at 100 to 250,000. And then as you get into the higher investment levels, those are going to be kind of like your restaurants, brick and mortar, inventory, lots of employee type businesses. These lower investment levels are always going to be maybe home-based, mobile type businesses where the owner is involved in the business full time. So there's no correlation between the cost of the franchise and the potential return, but there is a correlation between the cost of the franchise and the business model or role of the owner that you get. So the question always comes up, and I wanted to touch on this with you too, is how do you fund a franchise? And there's a wide variety of resources, and there's another educational piece that we offer to clients as they look at investing in a franchise. Is how are you going to fund this business? What is your personal situation? And we have a lot of resources for folks that we tap into, whether it be SBA financing, using a 401k or IRA funds, and you can use those tax-free, penalty-free. You can roll them over almost into kind of like a self-directed IRA, but it's not considered a self-directed IRA. But you can use those funds tax-free, penalty-free. Home equity line of credit is a big option that a lot of folks look at these days, a lot of equity in homes. And you can get creative with funding and financing. And you don't have to have a job to get the funding either, which is because franchising has a unique approach, and there's a whole registry with the SBA, and they've got historical records that you can take a look at. That makes it more attractive for lenders. Okay, true or false? Do you need industry experience when it comes to franchising? If I want to buy a home care franchise, do I need to be a nurse or have healthcare background?
Yes.
You do need industry experience?
No.
No? You sure? Yeah, you do not need industry experience. I love franchising for folks that have been, a lot of folks come to me because they've been downsized, taken early retirement, hate their corporate job, it was the wrong industry for them, whatever it might be, they want to reinvent themselves. Franchising is an awesome way for you to take those transferable skill sets that you've created over time in your corporate roles, and then utilize them and apply them to a completely different industry. The franchisors have those proven processes and systems that they'll train you on, right? And so as long as you've got communication skills, management skills, maybe some sales ability, general management, operational type background, they will take those skills and teach you how to use them and apply their system. So why is franchise rocketing? Franchising actually is a huge contributor to our economic well-being. There are more franchises out there that you may not be even aware of. You drive by and you may think of a local business is just a mom and pop organization, and likely could be a franchise. So franchising makes a huge impact. We're continuing to expand. The pandemic did put a huge damper on our expansion in franchising. Franchisors had to get really creative through the pandemic to stay relevant. And I think if you were to look back through the pandemic, those business closures that we saw, unfortunately, were more mom and pop, what I call mom and pop organizations, but a lot of franchises survived because the franchisors were able to help their franchisees pivot very quickly to online platforms. They were able to put a freeze on any royalty dollars maybe that were required or minimums so that the franchisees could use those dollars to stay active. So franchising is rocking because of that, and because it is a great way for folks to have what I call a plug and play business. It's a faster ramp up, faster break even route to business ownership. And so one of the questions that the board or the group posed to me today is, why are franchisors choosing West Michigan over other regional or national markets? And, I've got to be honest with you, they're not. They're not choosing West Michigan over other markets. I work with over 250 different franchise organizations, and all of them are calling me regularly, asking me to help them find franchisees in this local market. But guess what? They're calling all of my associates around the country as well. So franchisors are franchising because they want to expand and build their brand name on a national level quickly. And that's what the whole mode of franchising is all about. But what I can tell you is West Michigan does have very positive demographics for franchising. I mentioned that franchising is very territorial based. And so a lot of franchises will build their territories based on certain demographic numbers, whether it be an age range or number of households or number of businesses, or maybe even income levels. And West Michigan does continue to have positive population growth. And I will mention that we are considered one of the more entrepreneurial friendly areas in the state as well. We have a ton of resources available for entrepreneurs from groups like the FBDC and SCORE, like I mentioned earlier, GROW, West Michigan Women Forward. We've got a great Grand Rapids librarian that helps with market research. And there's even an inventors network. So Grand Rapids is just an overall very positive place and a growing place for, for individuals to launch businesses in. So thank you so much for having me today. I just covered a lot of little information, try to educate you a little bit on what franchising is all about today, but I'm happy to answer any questions or go over specific information that you were looking for related to franchising. Yes.
What do you place the most, you personally?
It's funny. If I were to look back at the past couple of years, I usually don't place a lot of food concepts, but there's a brand new chicken cone up here in that corner by Celebration Cinema, and that gal was my client. There's a concept called Clean Eats over in Cascade, which is fabulous meal prepping and clean eating, and that guy was my client. So a couple of food items. If I were to look at FranNet as a whole, home services is really an affordable and much needed franchise type concept out there. It is something different for everybody though. And so when I work with clients, I take the approach of really trying to understand what that client's unique skill set is, what their interests are. It's like putting a puzzle together. What are your skill sets? What are your interests? What's your budget? What are your lifestyle goals? Some people don't mind working retail or restaurants. Others are like, I want to be home with the kids at night. I'm sick of working late nights, or I'm sick of traveling. And so we put all those puzzle pieces together. And my job is to understand, of those 250 different franchises, what is the role of the owner that they're looking for? And how does that match up with what you're looking to get out of a business and match that all together? But home services is super popular.
Given the changing, let's say, work ethic these days, you see a lot more failures of these franchisees.
When I look back at why franchises fail, it isn't necessarily, it's usually undercapitalization, number one. People have, they underreport their financial situation and don't budget correctly or put a financial pro forma together at all as they get into the business. Undercapitalization is number one reason fair. Number two is they don't follow the system. So I wouldn't say it's lack of work ethic. I would just say it's people just making the bad choice of getting into a franchise that's not a good fit for them. Fit has a direct correlation to success, in my opinion. Yeah.
Are there such things as an online franchise?
Yes. That's a great question. There's a couple of different options out there. There are, I would say online franchises, but virtual franchises where maybe you could work from anywhere. For example, I just had a client I was working with. She's originally from Michigan. She got married, moved to Spain with her husband, and was looking for a franchise that they could run from anywhere because they travel a lot. And so there are some options out there like that. There's other options where you can keep your full-time job and run a business on the side. A lot of folks that are looking to create an exit strategy or add another level of investment, diversity to their portfolio, they may look at launching a business where they hire a manager to run the day-to-day operation. Maybe they put 10 to 20 hours a week into the business, check in daily, take a couple phone calls each day to run the business. So there are some options like that. Yes.
Just trying to work with business owners that want to start franchises.
That's a great question. So we do have a partner company that we would refer individuals off to for that. That is a whole nother ballgame when you want to franchise a business. There's a lot that goes into that. I will have a kind of a one-on-one consultation with an individual that has an interest in doing that and kind of give them some tips and guidance on what they need to have in place before they even think about franchising, because it is a couple-year process to get things around for that. Yes.
How about a franchisee that wants to sell? Do you help find a buyer, or is the franchisor usually involved?
The franchisor, according to the franchise agreement, the franchisor is always involved in that. And if the franchisee wants to help me sell their existing franchise here locally, that concept would need to be in my inventory legally because I'm not a broker, I'm a consultant. Yes.
Is there an average amount of time that somebody owns a franchise?
Yes. So I would say most franchise agreements are 10-year agreements. I will see a few 5-year agreements and 15-year agreements sprinkled in there, but usually it's a 10-year agreement. At the end of that 10 years, you can either sell the business transfer it to a family member perhaps, if you wanted to leave a legacy, or you could close the doors. Good question. Yes.
Always had the probably mistaken impression that you're, if you're already a business person, if you're already making good income, switching to a franchise. Suffer a little bit financially. I'm wondering how many of these are actually enough to support, to replace an income as opposed to some are, you're struggling.
Depends upon what your income is,
Sure.
right? So a lot of the franchise in our inventory, one of our rules of thumb is that we'd like for them to have the capability. We can't make any income claims, right? But we like for them to have the capability of allowing you to replace your six-figure income. Some franchises don't give you that option to do that. Let's just say it's a semi-absentee business ownership option, where you're keeping your full-time job. You now have to take, if you were to occupy a seat in that business, you would be able to take more out of it, but now you've got to pay somebody to run the day-to-day operations. So your net income may be a little bit lower, perhaps. But in that scenario, a lot of folks look at adding multiple locations. So you could, launch one, 12 months later, launch another one, and build even a multiple six-figure income potential if you wanted to.
Is there an average failure rate within franchises, or is it very specific to like,
It's,
or just the person?
in the FDDs, they will report closures of their system. And franchisors do not like to see closures or have to report those. So I would say if you're seeing, more than 10% closure rate each year, then that's getting a little bit high. Great questions.
Any more?
All right, thank you.
Thank you for joining. Okay.
Thank you.
Lions Club is,
Yeah.
in 210 countries around the world.
Yeah.
And thanks very much
Oh,
for
thank you.
teaching us a lot. I learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
See somebody tomorrow night at the hockey game in 2 weeks. We're adjourned.